This is it. After many, many days of reviewing this show, we are already up to the final review of Season 1. It's been quite a journey. It's been a very interesting first time experience from start to finish. And I just want to take a moment to thank all of you for watching all 18 of these videos. I know it hasn't always been the most pleasant, and sometimes I have been negative, but trust me when I say that this has been a great season and a really, really fun ride. And I'm excited to do it again next year for Season 2. So, I hope you guys have enjoyed all of these videos. I hope you've enjoyed all these reviews. And make sure to stay tuned till the end of this one because you're going to be getting my top 10 best of the season as well as my top 5 worst. So, let's send off this season and this first ever Gumball marathon on the channel with the loudest and biggest bang we can possibly concoct. Especially since both of these episodes are two of the best of the season. With the season finale in particular being the second best episode of the entire season. So, one more time for the road, let's discuss. What's up? What's happening? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Animation Station, your number one station for anything and everything animation, including TV and movies. I am your host, Jackson Small. Welcome back to the amazing world of Gumball. One last time for the final two episodes of Season 1. The Helmet and the Fight. Two awesome episodes. And you can put awesome in all caps because both of these are two of the best of the season. And extremely entertaining. Let's begin with the helmet. So, in this episode, Gumball, Richard, and Nicole become obsessed with a lucky helmet, which ends up driving the family apart to the point where Darwin, with the help of Anais, has to destroy it. And they take it to a fiery trash monster mouth thing. I forget what it's called. And the final conflict then comes into play as Gumball then has to fight Anais and Darwin to get back his lucky helmet to, continue using its power for evil. Until, literally at the edge of death, Anais and Darwin are able to convince Gumball to finally let it go. And then the three of them work together to finally destroy the helmet once and for all. Now, that sounds like a really simple plot, and it kind of is, but it's made up for by one big thing. The fact that this episode is a parody of Lord of the Rings. Don't believe me? You have a bunch of people who are usually like friends or accomplices or comrades or stuff, however you want to pronounce it, and they are driven apart by one very powerful object. To the point where it has to be destroyed at some kind of big fiery mountain thing. So, that leads into a final confrontation when one of them refuses to let it go because they become addicted to its power. Sound familiar? Yeah, it's literally the story of Lord of the Rings broken down and made a little bit more kid-friendly. And I know you guys probably don't know this about me, because barely any of you watched my Lord of the Rings review, but I'm a pretty big fan of that original trilogy. And yes, I think it's better than Star Wars, fight me. So having an entire episode that's literally a parody of that series, of that main conflict, is really cool, especially for one of the last episodes of the very first season of the show. And even if it's not an intentional parody, it's a really good parody. So much so that there are three highlights to talk about. First one is right at the beginning when Gumball decides to give up his lucky helmet to Richard because he thinks that it's grown stale and boring. And that leads to Anais taking her plate and ringing it like a gong. And her immediate line, when Gumball asks her what was that for, she says, "That was the sound of doom for the Watterson family." And her deadpan delivery and the facial expression just immediately makes it work. It is so funny. Then the second highlight comes not too far after the last one, where Richard has to talk with Nicole about who gets the helmet that day, because he got invited onto a show to win a speedboat, while she, while also wearing the helmet, got called in for a promotion at her job. So Richard comes up with this ingenious plan. He makes another helmet, and at first he gives Nicole the real one, but then he fakes her out by making her think that the one that he gave her the first time was the fake one, and then actually gives her the fake one and makes her think it's the real one. She takes it to work, and she goes through the whole day thinking that she has the helmet. But as soon as one of the people at her work points out that it's not tinfoil, she immediately tells them to turn on the TV. And that's when she sees that Richard has the real one and has won that speedboat in Win or Don't Win. And that's when Nicole has her final, and in my opinion, funniest crash out of the entire season. Because as soon as she sees that, she takes a deep breath and then destroys everything in the office room. It's one of those great crash out moments that makes me enjoy her character so much. It is insanely funny because she just takes a deep breath and then just lets all her anger loose. And even after she knows she's getting fired, she keeps doing it anyway. It's so good. And then finally, the last highlight is the entire final act, where they literally turn Gumball into Gollum. Because he becomes so obsessed with this helmet that he's willing to fight and, in implications, say, even destroy Darwin and Anais, his own sister and brother, just to get back this relic of power. You see why I call it a Lord of the Rings parody? It's literally like when Frodo and Gollum have a final confrontation on Mount Doom. Heck, they even do the fake out where it looks like Gumball dived into the lava mouth trash thing to save the helmet. And they make you think for a few seconds that he's actually dead. Ballsy for a kid's show, because we rarely ever see this nowadays. So then it's obviously revealed, because this is a show made for kids, that he's not dead, and he's just hanging on to a piece of row bar. The helmet's hanging on a piece of row bar. He manages to get the helmet, but he can't be pulled back up by Anais until he gives her his other hand, which his other hand is holding the helmet. So, after a bit of convincing and a lot of really fun over-the-top banter, Gumball finally drops the helmet. But it doesn't go in the fire right away, so then the bunch of them have to pick up rocks and throw it at the helmet to knock it into the flame to finally destroy it. It's a great mix of parody, comedy, and surprising epicness with some of the best lighting of the season because of its fiery setting. And there's technically one more part in between that and Gumball almost diving to his death, because he does manage to get the helmet back temporarily, and Darwin and Anais keep trying to hit him with rocks, and when literally Gumball walks up to Anais point blank, then just by pure fate and power of the helmet, she ends up hitting a bird instead. Which leads to Gumball then getting a tennis ball launcher and shooting at them until Darwin, who takes a hit from the tennis ball and he dramatically falls, knocks the helmet off, and that's when the three of them fight for it, and Gumball supposedly plummets to his death, until he doesn't. It's such a cool final act, man. Probably one of my favorites of the season, again, because of the Lord of the Rings homage. And also because they still keep it kid-friendly while still trying to keep it epic and grandiose. Genuinely brilliant writing here by Ben Bocklett, John Foster, James Lamont, Tommy Panez. Apologies if I mispronounced any of your names. And apparently this was based on an idea by Tommy and Mark Beltros. My guess is they are both Lord of the Rings fans. Either that or the whole thing is just coincidence. Regardless, this is an awesome episode. Not only because of the Lord of the Rings homage, but also because it's just plain funny. And the way that they parody Lord of the Rings is extremely clever. And also, the episode ends with Richard getting that speedboat and the reveal that he's driving the speedboat down the road and literally tearing the road in half. Saying, I told you I'd use it, wouldn't I? The perfect ending to a nearly perfect episode. My only issue with it is that after the scene of Nicole crashing out, up to the scene of Darwin and Anais going to destroy this helmet, they have one moment of really odd pacing. That's literally my only gripe. If that one scene had better pacing, this would be a 10. But as it is, it's an easy high 9 out of 10 for the final verdict. Awesome episode. If you're a Lord of the Rings fan, you'll greatly appreciate it. And even if you're not, it's still a really funny and very entertaining episode. Alright, let's finish this off with the season finale and the second best episode of the entire first season of Gumball with the fight. What a season finale. I had a feeling they were going to go all out for this one because it's the final episode of the very first season, but dang, it turned out way better than I thought it would. And considering I already had high expectations because it is a season finale, it somehow surpassed even that to become the second best episode of the entire season, being one of only 2 episodes to surpass the end. Which, up to a certain point, I thought was completely undoable. But this show continues to defy my expectations in all the craziest and best ways. So, let's talk about the final episode of the first season, the fight, and why it is an incredible episode, and one of the best season finales I've come across in animation. So, this is an episode about Tina bullying Gumball. And after Anais tries and fails to threaten Tina to quit picking on her brother over the phone, Tina mistakes it for Gumball challenging to fight her. So she immediately schedules a fight the very next day, and the rest of the episode is Gumball trying to find a way out of it. First, Richard tries to help him by teaching him the old family secret of the bunny hop, only for that to turn out to be completely useless. Then he visits Mr. Small's office, and they try to explain the situation, but as soon as they mention that it's Tina, all the colors drain from him and he shoves them out the door, showing that even the guidance counselor is scared of the T-Rex. Valid, honestly. Anais then talks down to Tobias and all the other kids that are laughing at Gumball for, getting in this fight with someone that's clearly going to far outclass him. But that backfires, and she ends up being carried away. Then that's when Darwin comes up to Gumball and takes him to the school gym and gets him a bully-proof suit of armor, which is really just a suit of cardboard boxes and an upside-down trash can. And when Darwin tries to show off the suit's defensive abilities, it doesn't work. Then Gumball tries to build up self-confidence, only to then immediately lose it as he goes to the schoolyard and literally everyone is there, including Penny, excited to watch the fight. And then Gumball tries to act like a man when Tina finally comes around, only for him to act like a man to replicate his father by running away. Leading into the final chase scene of the season, which we will talk about in just a minute. Then, after all of that, and turning out to run into the door of Mr. Small, and not actually hit by Tina whatsoever, Gumball comes home with a black eye. And as soon as Nicole sees it and Anais informs her of what's been happening, they immediately drive to the junkyard, and Nicole has a talk with Mr. Rex while Gumball and Tina make up and find a mutual understanding of each other. And then the episode ends with Gumball getting his face smushed in the food again, and this time he understands that it's not Tina bullying, it's just her way of having fun, so to speak. Now, I can see why this episode may or may not be a little problematic, because it is an episode that ends with the bully getting to pretty much continue doing what she's doing. But in a weird way, it's not, because that's just showing how different Tina is from the rest of the cast when it comes to how, she perceives friendship. Which leads into all just a misunderstanding and not exactly meant to be bullying. It's that classic trope of don't judge a book by its cover, and honestly one of the best in that category. Because this is the episode that actually made me like Tina a lot more than I used to. I by no means hated her character, it just felt like she was a big menacing plot device for most of it. Outside of the one episode where Anais tries to comfort her with giving her donkey plushie after getting chased around the junkyard and seeing how much it helps Tina deal with the dark. But this is the episode that made me really like Tina and understand her character a lot more. For that alone, it gets high praise from me. What else gets a high praise? It's 5 highlights. Yes, 5. One of the biggest collection of highlights of any episode of this entire season. Like I said, dude, this season ends really strong despite the mediocre pairing that followed right before it. So let's get to those highlights and finish off this final episode of the first season. First up is the bunny hop, where it's built up to be like Richard teaching his son an ultimate karate skill, only for the example to lead to him cowering in fear, giving Gumball his lunch money and a sandwich, and then trying to run away only to faceplant into the fence. Richard being Richard. Then highlight number 2 is when Anais' motivational speech completely backfires, because she talks down to everyone that's making fun of Gumball for getting in a fight with Tina. But her speech works a little too well, and she ends up getting carried off because the power goes to her head, leaving Gumball completely alone. 3 is Gumball's suit of power, which, as we've already explained earlier, is just a bunch of cardboard boxes in an upside-down trash can. Though I will admit, it is a really cool suit design. Despite being, homemade and not protective at all. And the way Darwin tests it by literally beating the crap out of Gumball, yeah, that's just a cherry on top of what's already a pretty great moment. Then we have the chase scene. This scene is awesome. Now, technically, yes, it is the second time we've had Tina in a chase scene in this season, but I'd argue this one's better than the one in the junkyard, because this one we get to see her literally demolish through the entire school just to go after Gumball. It's pretty cool, the camera work is great, and it pretty much takes all the best parts of the other chase scenes of the season and brings them all together into one glorious moment. All ending with a slightly funny part of Gumball not being hit by Tina at all, and instead face planting into Mr. Small's door when he refuses to let him in. Just great cap off to the best chase scene of the season. And then finally is the ending, where Gumball and Tina find a mutual understanding in each other, while Nicole immediately beats the crap out of Mr. Rex behind closed doors. Arguably Nicole's best crash out of the season, and even though we don't see it, we hear it. And we do see at the end how she literally gives Mr. X such a walloping that it demolishes his entire little garage home. showing just how much you do not want to mess with Nicole when you make her mad. I already said Darwin's my favorite character of the season, Nicole is my second. And that is The Fight. It's a great episode with excellent writing and a huge high note to end off the first season, with a final score of a well-deserved and third of the entire season, 10 out of 10. Phenomenal episode, highly recommend checking it out if you haven't already. And with that, we've officially covered all 36 episodes of the original first season of The Amazing World of Gumball. It's been quite an interesting journey watching all these through for the very first time, after only seeing bits and pieces up to this point. And I gotta say, it makes me appreciate the show a lot more. It's not that I hated it when it was first airing or anything, it's simply because I just didn't get it. But now I understand it. It's all about being random, it's all about breaking the fourth wall, and it's all about just being as unique as possible. And the funniest scenes in this season are some of the funniest I've seen in animation. So how does that stack up in final list form? Well, let's start with our top 10 best of the season, shall we? And I'm just going to read them off. I'm not going to go super in detail because I already have reviews of every single episode. So, 10 is the pressure, 9 is the responsible, 8 is the gi, 7 is the dress, 6 is the helmet, and then the top 5 is the spoon, the curse at number 4, the end at number 3, the fight at number 2, and at number 1, reigning supreme, is the mustache. I just love that episode so much, man. Though I will admit, it was a very tough call between that and the fight. Both are great episodes for their own reasons. As for the episodes that I would personally recommend you start off with this show, I'd recommend you start with the DVD, and then jump all the way to the end, and then the curse, the spoon, and finally, the fight. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend you start with Mustache first, otherwise you won't really get the show's humor. Start with the episodes I've listed, then you can watch the Mustache, and then it will make a lot more sense, and you'll be able to understand the humor a lot more. However, this season was not perfect. There was also some pretty bad ones. Now, not to the point of being like SpongeBob Season 7 bad, because none of these episodes fell below a 2 out of 10. And to be fair, only like 3 or 4 episodes are actually bad, and one of them is just okay. So, let's talk about them. Here are my top 5 worst of Season 1 of Gumball, which will be on the other side of your screen. 5 is The Date, the most disappointing episode of the season because the title promises initially that's going to be a cute episode where Penny and Gumball go on a date together, and then the second half dives off a cliff by having it be a simple misunderstanding and her inviting Gumball to a funeral for her pet spider. And then it's just him acting like an insensitive jerk because his family taught him literally everything except for how to deal with this particular situation. And then the rest of the episode is extremely just monotonous. And while the microwave is technically worse, the Date's pure disappointment outranks it, which is why the microwave got spared from being on the worst list. 4 goes to the Meddler. This is just a bad episode of Nicole being overbearing, and you already know how I feel about character assassination if you've seen all my SpongeBob videos. So, you already know how much I don't like that Nicole gets character assassinated in this one. Even though it has a sweet ending, and it's not the worst thing I've ever seen, it's still a pretty bad episode. 3 is The Secret. This is just an episode of Gumball being awful to Darwin for 11 minutes to get a secret out of him, and when we find out what the secret actually is at the very, very end of the episode, it is absolutely not worth it. Add on bad pacing and very monotonous writing, and you have a very tedious watch. 2 is The Laziest. This is such a terrible, terrible piece of crap. Like, the only reason it wasn't a 1 is because it had some funny moments, and even then they were few and far between. It's just them trying to out-lazy Richard and having that awful, awful moment of them literally ruining Larry's life for no reason. Because despite turning him into Lazy Larry by taking everything away from him, it all leads up to Larry not showing up to the Lazy Off, making that entire scene completely pointless. So yeah, screw everything about that one scene, it alone sinks this episode. But then you add on the bad writing, the terrible pacing, and the egregious conclusion, where the bad guy wins. Yeah, screw this episode. But it's not the worst of the season. That somehow was topped by our number one worst of the season, The Sock. The most pointless, self-contradictory, and extremely tedious episode of this entire freaking thing. I didn't think it'd get worse than The Laziest, but somehow this one angered me more because it's just completely pointless. It's an episode that's trying to teach about honesty and lying, but it completely contradicts itself the entire time, making its message completely muddled, and not to mention just straight up lazy. Not to mention it's a Mr. Small episode, which has already proven to be some of the weakest content of this show. And the rest of it is just extremely annoying because it's predictable, it's ridiculous in the worst of ways, and it's just plain stupid, a grand majority of the time. Add on the monotony of them continuously getting sent back to Mr. Small's office because he's a terrible guidance counselor and teaches them everything the wrong way, and that cringe, awful rap song I forgot to talk about in the actual episode review. It is easily the worst episode of the season. Just absolute, boring, pointless piece of crap. And that's it. That is everything I have to say about Season 1 of Gumball. Tallying everything up together, that leads it with a ratio of 26 to 10. Obviously making it a great season. However, not the greatest, because when this show did sink low, it sunk pretty darn low. But the highs do mostly outweigh those few negatives and critiques. And to be honest, most of the episodes on the bad side are mainly just average and forgettable, with only 2 of them in particular being outright infuriating. And then the best of this season is truly some really great original stuff that helps it stand out from most of its peers in animation. From its unique style to its great comedy to its heartfelt storytelling and just pure over-the-top unapologetic randomness. So bringing all of that together, I think that brings this season to a final verdict of an 8.5 out of 10 for season 1. It's a strong first season to start off your show, and it's easy to see why it quickly became an icon in Cartoon Network's history. It's not a perfect season, and when it sinks low, it sinks really low, but the highs are just too good to call it bad. It's still an excellent season. I wish I loved it more, but the best of the season, I will be revisiting for some time. And with that, our first ever amazing month of Gumball comes to a close. Thank you all so much for watching all 18 of these reviews. Thank you so much for sticking with me for 6 years, and I hope to keep doing this for a very long time, because YouTube is my passion, and I love making content for you guys, even if sometimes the content I have to talk about is not the best. So, what's next for Animation Station? Well, I did say that there was a second theme month coming, but instead of just outright telling you or showing you, I think I'd rather just let you wait until next time. But trust me when I say, it is quite a brain blast. But until then, thank you all so much for watching. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe for more videos like this almost every single day. Feel free to leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below on this season, these 2 episodes, or just anything revolving around this show or Cartoon Network in general. Let me know your top 10 best of the season. I would love to hear yours. And until the next review, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching one more time. Take care. Love you guys. Thanks for 6 years on YouTube. And here's to many more to come. And as for you, Gumball, thank you for such a unique and fun first time experience. And I'll see you again in 2027. Take care, you crazy, wild, random show.